Hello and welcome to the Mind Detox Podcast. Here, we're going to discover a new way to think, feel, and heal while exploring our spiritual side. I'm your host, Sandy Newbigging, also known as the Mind Detox Monk, because, well, I'm a monk and a meditation teacher, and for the past 15 years or so, I've been working with people from around the world using a method that I accidentally created called Mind Detox. Mind Detox is all about curing the unconscious causes of physical, emotional, or life issues. So stick around if something is going on in your body, emotions, or life, and you don't know why, because we'll be exploring the possible mind-based causes during this or an upcoming episode. As a monk who's written 12 books and meditated for thousands of hours, the topics of inner peace and living in the present moment will most likely be a thread that runs through many of our episodes. So stick around again if you want to stress less and be still more. This podcast includes highlights from my online club and academy meetings, expert interviews, guided meditations, and more. All so that you can cure the cause and master peace. For today's podcast, I'm going to share the final part of my Calmdemic series, which is another highlight from one of my recent Mind Detox Club meetings. I introduce my Calm Cure method for curing the unconscious conflicts that can often be causing chronic conditions and persistent life problems. Stay tuned, because today I will also guide you through step 1 of the method so that you can use Calm Cure on the pandemic and find more peace and freedom. Let's talk a bit more about Calm Cure, because Calm Cure is what you'd want to use if you're finding it hard to live completely. Completely, remember, is the willingness to fully experience whatever is being presented. In other words, to experience the full spectrum of life. And at the beginning of Calm Cure, I share a few words right on the first chapter, I think, where I pose the question, are you willing to experience all of life or just some of it? Are you willing to experience all of life or just some of it? And it's a big question, because if we're honest with ourselves, there's probably some things that we're not wanting or unwilling to experience. And if you have a problem right now, that's usually something that you're unwilling to experience. So you could start there. Don't go looking for stuff that isn't even happening right now. But if there's something happening in your life or your world that is causing negative emotions, stress, tension, dis-ease, unease, worry, fear, or any of that kind of stuff, there'll be an element in there where you're not willing to have that experience. And what ends up happening with that unwillingness is we end up in a place of conflict. We end up having a pretty much a fruitless fight with life, because we're often fighting what has already shown up or what hasn't even shown up yet. We're just fighting with an imagination because it hasn't even happened yet. Or we're fighting with something that happened before but isn't happening anymore. So we're still fighting in our imagination at the end of the day. But we end up having this kind of fruitless fight that just hurts us. It's literally like getting the whip out every day and just slapping ourselves around with it unnecessarily. Why fight with what's already shown up? Yeah, by all means do stuff so it changes if you want, but it's already here. And if you're to live the body calm philosophy of living fully and completely, it's about having a complete willingness to having had every experience life has brought you. So if you have anything unresolved in your past that when you think about it brings up anger, sadness, guilt, shame, regret, or hurt, or whatever, then you can be sure that there's a conflict there. There's a part of you that still is resisting it because you're attached to something else happening instead. I wish my dad hadn't left because I was attached to him sticking around. I wish that breakup hadn't happened because I was attached to sticking with that person. Or I wish I hadn't lost that job because I was attached to keeping it, or whatever. So if there's anything that's causing like that it's not the surface level thing that's causing your distress. It's the inner unconscious conditioned conflict that usually is. Okay. So like I just hinted at, the philosophy in the heart of calm here is that unconscious conflict keeps us connected to and recreating the same stuff over and over and over again. Conflict is like a magnet to what we don't want. And we keep recreating the same patterns and emotions and thoughts and thinking over and over and over again until we're actually finally willing to experience, have the experience that life is inviting us to have. We're here to experience all of life, not just the parts that you've been conditioned to believe that you want. Okay? That which is aware of this moment, that consciousness wants to experience all of life. You exist so that it can experience the human experience, warts and all, good and bad. And if you're looking at the screen right now, I've got my fingers doing this annoying kind of what is it, air apostrophes or whatever they're called. That which is aware of this moment just wants to experience the moment, however it looks, however it sounds, whatever is happening. It's the mind and the ego that has all the preferences and opinions and positions, and is constantly judging, this should be happening, this shouldn't be happening. I'm sorry to say, guys, but there's not been a single moment that's happened in your life that shouldn't have happened, because it happened. You have never been late, ever. You've never missed an appointment. You've never been in the wrong place. It's impossible. There isn't a life that you should be happening over there, and this thing that you're getting is like the dregs of it, of this, or whatever. No. There is no party happening over there that you're not invited to. You are the party. There's nowhere else you should be, or you could be, other than where you are right now. Do you see where still surrender keeps showing up time and time again tonight? But you're not going to experience the beauty and magic and perfection unfolding if you're in a fight with what's appearing. It's going to be really tricky. You're going to be too busy having a fight with it and complaining about it and judging it and wishing it wasn't here and wishing it was different to actually be able to purely experience all of it and discover the aliveness of it, this pure aliveness and life in places which you never thought it should be or could be. There's immense aliveness in your willingness to fully experience whatever's showing up. Now, just because you're experiencing it now doesn't mean you have to experience it for the rest of your life, or you'll even be stuck experiencing it for the rest of your life. But I'm saying if it's showing up, have the experience now. Because if you're not, there's going to be a conflict. And usually that conflict causes that experience to keep coming at you until you're finally willing to have the experience that life is trying to give you. You're here to have this experience. And if you keep going, no, it's going to, no, I'm sorry, but you really meant to have this experience in this lifetime. No, here, it's here for you. It's your gift. It's like, just have the experience. No. We're too busy fighting life to actually fully be alive in that moment. The more alive we are, the less sick we are, the less depressed we are, the less anxious we are, the less scared we are. We're too busy feeling so freaking alive to care about a previous moment or what might happen next. It's an addictive aliveness. in the words of David Hamilton, I think I said recently, it's like you get a simmering affection for life. So let's play with Calmcure on the pandemic, shall we? The way that Calmcure works, and this is a top tip, and at some point in the future, I will put the level 1 Calmcure course in the resources, but I don't want to overwhelm you with too many different tools to play with in one season. And I really want you guys to really get good at the Mind Detox stuff at the moment, getting to know how it all works and stuff, 5 core causes and things like that. But I will release that at some point, so stick around for that. But the thing with Calmcure is it's about getting peace with what's happening in life, not necessarily with how you feel about it or what you think about it. It's more about, for Calmcure to work most easily for you, it's a 3-step method for getting peace with whatever you might be in conflict with. For it to work most easily, you need to figure out what is the thing that's happening in the world, in life, that you're in conflict with. Okay. So, for example, you wouldn't actually work on frustration. You would work on what's happening that you're frustrated about. Big difference. Can you see the difference? Can I have a nod? It's not, you wouldn't work on the frustration because that's a symptom of a conflict. So you'd work on what's happening that is causing that frustration. People not listening to you, not being able to do what you want, not knowing what's going to happen next, people not agreeing with you. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, these are things, everything I've just listed there are things that are happening, can happen in the world that if you have an unhealthy relationship with, it would end up with, for example, frustration. Is that clear, guys? Can I have a nod? See the difference? Yes? Okay. So how Calmcure works is, like I've already alluded to, you're going to calm a conflict. And conflict is made up of resistance and attachment. In other words, there's something you don't want, and at the same time as not wanting that thing, you don't want that thing because you're attached to this thing instead. Okay. So in the context of the pandemic, I'd like us all to come up with I'd like you to come up with your own personal conflict relating to the pandemic. Okay. And I'd like it, to make it easier for you. I'd like you to make it kind of about, I mean, you might have no problem with it at all, but this is called Calmdemic tonight. So I thought, hey, we're in the middle of a supposed pandemic. So we're gonna we might as well do that. But you can, if you don't want to do it on that, you can do this on anything that's happening in your life that's bothering you. Okay. But take a moment to think of something that's bothering you right now. It could be about the current world scenario or something that's going on in your life. And I'd like you to answer this question. What's happening that you do not want? And don't tell me about how you're feeling about something. Tell me about what's actually happening, what's showing up that you would rather not be showing up. What's happening that you do not want? Okay. And if you want, you can write it in the chat box, because at least I can kind of maybe answer you and then go, yeah, that's a good resistance. Because we're going to find a resistance, we're also going to find an attachment. Lenny says, not being able to do what I want. Awesome. Can't go where I want to. Awesome, Claire. Being told what to do. Perfect, Jackie. These are perfect resistances. Restricted. Not being safe. That's an interesting one to work on. What's happening that would cause you to not feel safe? I would see what answer you get to that. The only reason is because if you use the word safe, your mind is going to want to really fight ever not being safe. And so go further in the thing that's happening that would cause you to not feel safe. Again, my children not being safe. So what's happening that would, go beyond that? So it's not, you're not using the word safe. Not being able to plan. Very good, Sue. Not being able to see my family. Perfect, Gail. You get the idea, guys, okay? So you've now got the resistance. I want you to now find the attachment. What would you much rather be experiencing instead? So whatever you wrote down, what would you much rather be experiencing instead? And it's usually kind of the opposite, but just, write it down. So Lenny said, want to what I want to do. To be able to do what I want to do would be what your attachment. To have control of what's going to happen. Yes, great one, Sue. Freedom to choose what I want to do. Awesome, Maria. To be able to do what I want when I want to do it. Fantastic, Jill. To be able to go out where I want to go and to invite people around freely. Awesome. So you get the idea, guys. Well done, all of you. So now what you do is, I want you to recognize that life is happening in a spectrum of possibilities. And sometimes what you think you want is going to show up, and sometimes other things are going to happen. True or false? Has that kind of happened every day so far of your entire life? That sometimes you get what you think you want, and sometimes you get something else? I don't know anyone that gets 100% what they think they want. And if they do, it's usually because they've really reduced their standards massively. But do we agree? Can I have a yes in the chat box that life is happening in a spectrum of possibilities, and the reality up until this present moment is that sometimes you get what you think you want and sometimes you get something else? Is that true or false? Is that a yes? It's really, really, really important to recognize and answer this prior to doing the protocol we're about to do. Yes, 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 yes. Yep. Yes, yes. Okay, thank you, guys. Why is that important? Well, because why fight with inevitability? It's inevitable that sometimes you're going to get what you think you want, and sometimes you're going to get something else. Now, this is not defeatist. I promise you, this is not defeatist. This is actually more empowering than fighting what already is. This is about having such a liberated attitude and relationship with life, is that you can experience peace, love, joy, and freedom irrespective of what happens in the world, what happens in your body. You can experience peace irrespective. I'd say that's more empowering than continuing a fruitless fight with inevitability. So, in a moment, I'm going to repeat a sentence, and I'm going to ask you, I'm going to say insert resistance. And when I say insert resistance, I want you to insert the thing you're resisting. And then I'm going to say a bit more, and I'm going to say insert attachment. And when I go quiet, I want you to say or think the attachment that you came up with. Clear? Okay. Repeat after me. All things are possible. And I'm willing to experience insert resistance. Sometimes. And I'm willing to experience insert attachment. Sometimes. So we're going to do that one more time. So now that you know what we're going to do, it's going to be much more obvious. Are you clear? All things are possible. And I'm willing to experience resistance. Not being able to do what I want or whatever. Resistance. Sometimes. And I'm willing to experience attachment. Sometimes. And now I'd like you to rest into the willingness for both of these possibilities to calmly coexist within you. Breathe. Rest into the willingness for both these possibilities to calmly coexist within you and to occasionally show up in your life. Either won't always show up. Life is happening in a spectrum of possibilities. Your job is to be willing to sometimes experience one end of the spectrum, sometimes experience the other end of the spectrum, or anything in between. Freedom is the willingness to experience anything and the ability to do so without suffering. So we'll do it one more time. If you're up for it, repeat after me. All things are possible, and I'm willing to experience sometimes, and I'm willing to experience sometimes. Now rest into the willingness for both of these possibilities to calmly coexist within you, and it's your choice. Be willing in the recognition that life is happening in a spectrum of possibilities. Rest into the willingness, breathe. Recognize it's more empowering to actually be willing to experience the full spectrum. And let either of these possibilities sometimes show up in your life. Very good. Take a deep breath in with me. Out through a window or door. And that is an intro to Calm Cure. There's more to the technique in if someone then was to rate it and see if they're not completely willing yet. But I'm curious, on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being complete willingness, how willing are you to experience the different possibilities that you just worked on? We've got answers ranging from 7 to 10. Oh, there's a 5 there. Lots of 9s and 10s. Awesome. What would you do at that point? Well, I don't want to make this too long, this webinar tonight. Maybe I promise one time we will do a full session on Calm Cure. But I wanted to, you would, there's other steps. I took you through step 1 of 3 steps of the Calm Cure technique. But I want you to have a simple way to start playing with surrendering to what is and being willing to experience whatever's showing up. Now, here's the cool thing with this. Just because you're no longer in conflict with it doesn't mean you can't take action to make any changes that you see fit. The difference is you don't suffer. That's it. You're not suffering. You can still, just because you're experiencing peace, you still know what's okay and what isn't, and what's right and what's wrong, and in a more discerning way. And so none of this is just being defeatist and never leaving your house ever again if that's what the government says. You might at some point go, F this, I'm a free human being. So, and you might do stuff about it. So I'm not saying you can't take action and say stuff, do stuff, and all the rest of it. Are you clear on that, guys? But what this is about recognizing that my peace is more important. My peace is more important. My peace is my priority. And on a bigger scale, if there's a me, a my, or a mine that is in conflict with life, it's really hard to experience oneness with life because the ego will still be in play. There's a part of you that's still fighting, still judging, still resisting, still trying to control. So ultimately, this is a really big and important thing to play with, guys. And I hope you are willing to do so. Okay.